You'll have a timer at the top.
Action.
All right. It's the end of the session. This is Abigale, and Abigale is a little bit of an anxious, nervous dog. She was under-socialized as a puppy, and she's reactive to humans. So at the end of the session, I'm not going to move around. Normally, I would have the dog here, but for this is I don't think she's ever had somebody in her house for 3 hours. And she just gave us an indicator that she's pretty much done for the day. So this is her roadmap to success. We're going to talk about the things we need her guardians to do to start to flip the leader-follower dynamic. I think in her mind, she thinks she's under-socialized. She doesn't have a lot of practice doing social positive behaviors, and she does have a lot of practice of it being aggressive and growly at passersby and things along those lines. And the guardians don't have a lot of and remember, and the guardians don't have a lot of visitors come by. So it's just not something she's practiced. So the first thing we talked about was getting her a little bit more exercise. Now, she's got a bad hip, and because she's so reactive, they can't take her to the vet. And so we don't know for sure, and a chronic injury, just like us, is going to make us not feel very good. So that probably is a contributing factor. We can't exercise her in a traditional sense. When we're walking, the guardian does walk her when it's not horrible outside, but that also might aggravate her or injury. So what I suggest is some scent games. Go to Google scent games, and it really can be as simple as having Abigale in the next room, hiding 5 treats around the room, and it can be as simple as she runs around a corner, sees the treat on the floor, she licks it up, we say the word hunt or find or whatever the word is, search. Having a dog use its nose can be stimulating, and also this sort of activity can be very physically draining for her. So we can drain her excess energy without causing any damage to her hip. The next thing we talked about were enforcing rules and ways to enforce or not enforce, but to create a healthy leader-follower dynamic. Now, for the dog, if they don't have any rules, they don't see the humans acting like a leader. And one of the guardians, Abigale, absolutely shadows and thinks is her job to protect. Now, it's nice when people think our dog's job is to protect, but unless they've been trained to protect, they often make mistakes. And if the dog has not been trained to protect, and they're doing it on their own, if the dog thinks its job is to protect, it's also its job to correct. And we don't want the dog to have that perception. So we talked about enforcing some very simple rules to help the dog start to see and identify as being a follower. One of the first ones I mentioned was having the dog sit before we let her in or out of a door. We're going to go to the door and say, sit one time as a command. Not can you sit, sit. And we count 1, 2, 3 in our head. If she doesn't sit by 3, I walk away. Sit down somewhere, because if you're standing, you look temporary or transitory. And after, it'd be actually easier if you hold your hand at the base. There you go. You can support it on your leg. There we go. And so if she can't be bothered to sit, I can't be bothered to open the door. So I tell her to sit. She has one opportunity to sit. I'm only going to say it once. The more you say it, the less you mean it. If she doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down, turn the TV on, pull up a magazine or newspaper, read something, but give yourself a 60-second timer. After 60 seconds, go back to the door and command her to sit again. Sit. If she doesn't sit this time, I'll walk away for 2 minutes. Next time, I'll walk away for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. I have treats in this hand. And keep double the length of time until eventually, when you go and tell her to sit, she sits immediately. And when she does, you swing that door open as fast as you can. Opening the door becomes her reward. After a while, she will go sit at the door as her way of asking, I'd like to go outside. Now she's giving a nice visual communication she'd like to go outside, and sitting is a more subordinate, somewhat respectful body position. But again, only say it once. Another one we talked about is feeding. For dogs, eating is the most important activity. So if we go to the door, we go to feed her, and we put the food down. Now the guardians have done a good job of making her wait for permission to eat. What I would like them to do is go down, put the food down, and she's not allowed to come within 7 feet of it. The guardians are then going to grab something that they can eat in 5 or more bites. It could be as much as 1 little potato chip we take in 5 tiny bites. Preferably something crunchy like a chip, carrot, celery, cracker, something like that. When I get done, the human's feeding gets done eating her, we invite her to come over, tap the bowl, say her name. When she comes over, when she takes her first bite of food, come up with a funny word. I think we're going to say chicken. So every time she takes her first bite of food for 2 months, she hears the word chicken once when she's taking her bite of food. After about 2 months, she'll be like, chicken means I get permission to eat my food. Now, when she comes over and sniffs her food, if she starts eating, then we say chicken. If she sniffs it and turns and walks away, or if at any point she eats a little bit, as soon as she walks more than 7 feet away, I pick up the bowl, I dump it empty, I put the empty bowl back down on the floor. It's important to put the empty bowl back down on the floor. And she does not eat again until the next meal. 99% of the time, the dog will come and lick the empty bowl. Now, dogs, I've had some dogs that will take 2 or 3 days before they will eat. Don't offer again until the next meal. She's fed twice a day, which is great. We want to feed at least twice a day. So she doesn't get fed again until the next meal. And then when we invite her over, if she does the same thing and doesn't eat, after she walks away, we pick it up and dump it. Eventually, when you say eat, she will eat. And usually when you dump the food, she'll lick the empty bowl. That's okay. And eventually what you're saying is, look, I am going to eat something first because I have more rank or status in the dog by demonstrating that I'm eating something. And then when I give you permission to eat, either you eat or the food goes away. Because in the wild, if she's in a pack of dogs and she doesn't feel like eating, whoever's behind her in rank is going to eat her portion. When she comes back and decides she is hungry, there's going to be not any food left. Remember, you're giving her opportunity to eat. If she turns her nose up on it, that's on her tab, not on our tab. And there will be a little bit of a test of wills here. The only time dogs go longer than 3 days without eating is somebody's cheating. And do not cheat, because you're only cheating against yourself. Hunger becomes your ally. And eventually, when she eats, when you ask her to eat and eats after you, she's starting to identify as a follower position. And that's a great way to start defining a healthy leader-follower dynamic. Let me see. Also, if you're going out the door, she should not go out the door in front of you. And if you want to teach her how to wait at doors or things like that, let me know. Now, another thing I went over in the video that's above this is how to claim the area around the door, how to teach the dog to move away from the door, and how to help her practice staying away from the door when we go through the individual steps of opening the door, the ritual of opening the door, as I like to refer to it. It's going to take some practice. Practice that. I like to see you practicing that like 3 to 5 times a day. Now, remember, when you step backwards, pause in between each step. And then if she stays in put, take another step. But as soon as she crosses that line, I want you racing at her as fast as you can. And as soon as she crosses the line, think of the carpet as base. And as soon as she crosses that, you rush towards her. And don't let her run around you or walk around you. She's got to stay away from the door. Let me see. So those are some examples, rules. I'd like for the guardians also to look for ways to delay gratification. She doesn't like, I don't see a lot of toys here, but the guardians told me they have plenty, but they're buying her stuffy toys and she's destroying them. I would prefer to have her have some hard, durable toys that she can chew on. So I like deer or elk antlers. Those are pretty expensive, but dogs chew when they're stressed. So giving her hard things to chew on is very appropriate and beneficial. I also like Nylabones, which are a hard plastic that you can't bend. They come in different flavors and come in different shapes. Everybody gets one that looks like a fake skeleton bone. I have one that's a circle, one that's the letter Y, one that looks like a Tyrannosaurus, one that's a fist. So get a couple of those. Go to Amazon. They're the cheapest place to get them is on Amazon or Chewy.com. Petco or PetSmart are going to be pretty expensive. And then also I would get her a water buffalo horn. That will probably outlast your dog. It is a horn for water buffalo. Make sure it's somewhat solid. If she's splintering it when she's eating it, that's not what you want. Dogs, like I said, when they're stressed, they chew. So we give her some hard, durable antlers, Nylabones, real bones, and a water buffalo horn. Now, if she's stressed out, she can grab something and put it in her mouth. Also, I'd like you guys to teach her, and I didn't talk about this until right now, but sometimes teaching a dog a replacement behavior is a wonderful way to rehabilitate them. So some dogs that are reactive at the door, what we do is we teach them to pick up an item and keep it in their mouth and occupy them. They can chew on it, relieve some stress, and we've taken care of the most dangerous part of a reactive dog is their mouth. So one of the things you might do is every time she picks up one of those, a specific toy, something that's like that she can really get a good chew on, but she can't destroy, maybe come up with a command word, binky. Because that's essentially what it is. And then basically what we do is every time she picks up, you pet her and say binky. Well, and after enough repetition, she says, picking this up and hearing binky gets attention from my guardians. Then if she gets reactive, when she just starts getting worked up, we say binky. If she can go pick that thing up and keep it in her mouth, you're teaching her replacement behavior. That's something we can work on in a follow-up session. Now, we also talked about, so make sure you get some of those, though, because she definitely needs some of those to chew on. Now, something else we went over is petting with a purpose, which is basically if she comes over and she is a shadow with one of the guardians and she kind of leans up against her, which is kind of a rot and a pit. A lot of bully breeds do that sort of thing. But sometimes it's insecurity. Sometimes I feel like I'm touching you, so if you try to go away, I know that you're going away. But it could also be a way of, the way that she's doing, I think in some way, is trying to demand attention. She kind of invades personal space. So when she does that, I want you to give her a command, counter order. Tell her to sit. When she sits, pet her under her chin. Remember, whenever possible, pet her on the chin could facilitate that nose up. Insecure dogs look down, and patting on top of the head creates a down nose orientation. So if you tell her to sit once and she sits, pet her under her chin and say the word sit, and then you can pet her as long as you want after that. If she doesn't sit after the first command, don't repeat the command words. Lean back in your chair, pull out your magazine or turn the TV on, and she missed the opportunity to get that attention. You need to play a little hard to get to start shifting the leader-follower dynamic. Right now she gets petted whenever she wants, whether she listens or not, so she doesn't have any motivation to listen. Well, once she starts longing for that attention, she's not getting lavished upon her, and she has to earn it. That's going to boost her self-esteem because she's paying for or earning that attention. It's helping her start to identify as more of a follower rather than a leader. It helps her practice sitting, which will help when you do have guests over and you ask her to sit. The more she practices sitting on command, the easier it will be in more advanced situations. And so it really is a trifecta. It does a number of things that will really help. And I have some clients that disregard it because it seems so simple. The way that it works is because of a lot of repetition. So make sure you're using that watchword of paycheck. And if somebody says paycheck to one of the particular guardians that's not filming this, that guardian needs to immediately stop petting, and no arguing. You can argue at other times, but not this. Dr. Dave says no arguing for this. And we tell the dog to sit again. If she doesn't sit, then she doesn't get that attention. If she does, and we pet her and say sit, then we tell our partner, hey, I asked her to sit, you missed it. But we just won't realize how often we pet without a purpose. And what will happen is after a while she'll start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention instead of leaning against you or pawing at you or nudging you to tell you to pet her. And that's a good, healthy leader-follower dynamic. Now, I like the guardians also to use passive training. Passive training is waiting for the dog to voluntarily do the behavior on its own. So every time she brings you that Binky toy, say the word Binky. Every time she brings you, all bones can be bones, all balls can be balls, but name each individual toy if it's a unique toy. Every time she takes a drink of water, say agua. Every time she takes her first bite of food, we say chicken. Every time she sits, we pet her and say sit. She lays down, we pet her and say crash. She does anything unusual. She rolls over and scratches her back. Call that jazzercise or whatever it is. But I want you to come up with funny command words. There's a little bit of tension because she is a big dog and she can be intimidating. She can do some damage. She hasn't bit anyone yet, but that doesn't mean that can't happen. But if we use funny command words that are unique to her, and it makes people smile, that's going to brighten the mood. It removes the tension, and dogs can absolutely feel tension, and it can actually be related to the issues. So we want to just use these fun command words so we have a light kind of feeling around the house. That'll make her feel more relaxed and comfortable. Is there anything else I didn't go over that we want to go over?
I can't think of anything.
Okay, this session we didn't do as much as I normally do because she needs a good foundation, and she was just out of sorts. I think she has PTSD. I can tell clearly that she has cortisol in her blood, remember, I guess that's one thing I'm glad I did remember. Do not pet her when she is nervous, anxious, and stop saying good girl when she's worked up, because you've probably created a command word, good girl. The only time I hear good girl, or a lot of times I hear it, is when I'm reactive. So good girl clearly means try to be aggressive and bite the guest. So instead, when she's reactive, you can lay your hand on her and let her know I'm here with you without amplifying it. They do associate touch with affection. But as soon as you start petting, you're going to make it worse. So come up with a word for that. So if you notice either one of you petting her at the wrong time, come up with, call it Hulk. Or for the Incredible Hulk, or come up with something that's, again, a funny word, a Hulk, and then ask her to sit. And then if she sits and she stops reacting, then you can pet her after that. But we have to stop petting her. I think the Guardian's probably done this thousands of times. It is the most common mistake people have with reactive dogs, is they try to pet it or console it, just like we would a child who hurts itself, but it absolutely backfires. All right, well, I would normally have the dog over here and I'd say, this is Abigale. This is Abigail's roadmap to success, but we saw a little cameo at the beginning of the session. She's pooped. She's grumbling a little bit over there, so I think she's ready for the dog guide to leave. Oh, she's snoring. Well, if she's snoring and asleep, that's awesome. I said she would be asleep within 5 minutes of me leaving. She's asleep before I've been left while I'm still talking. But that's a good sign. Now, if you do have any guests that come over, really, the more movement the guests have, the more anxious she's going to be. So really what I'd like you guys to do, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue, but don't have any guests over for the next month. Really focus on the stuff in this video. And I'd like you guys to watch this video. It's like a probably 10 or 15 minute video. I'd like you to watch it once a week. So every Sunday, go through and watch it. There are little things you're going to forget. Oh, I forgot we're supposed to do pet with a purpose or passive training or whatever it is. It'll help you get in a habit of doing it. And then once we get about 3 weeks from now, I'd like you to give us a call and we'll set up a 1 hour follow-up session and we'll build on the progress that we came up with here. All right, well, this is Abigale's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.